right, we may still have some folks trickling in, but we'll take advantage of the time we have together and we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Shana Horowitz, and I'm the Vice President of Product and Programs here at NewLab. I'm joining you live from our flagship location in the Brooklyn Navy Yard today. And we've been working really closely with all the different entities that are here with us today: the Michigan Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, the Michigan Department of Transportation, and Next Energy. And together, this group has been focused on attracting companies who have a vision for deploying pilot projects that support Michigan's ambitious mobility vision. And we're really excited to be hosting this info session today. I hope it provides a good level of information, but also a chance for you to get to know some people who can be helpful to your work. Just one quick note that we're going to be recording just the first part of this session, but we'll stop that recording before we break out into kind of networking conversations and things. So we're just recording the presentation part of it. You can flip to the next slide. Cool. So just a quick roadmap of how we'll spend our time together this afternoon. First, I'll tell you just a little bit about NewLab and the work that we're doing, kind of how we got involved in this. Then I'm going to hand it over to Catherine for a walkthrough of the Michigan Mobility Funding Platform, and we're happy to answer questions at that point. Then we're going to segue into a panel discussion to dive deeper into really what makes for a successful project. And we're going to be featuring some of the partners who work to help bring these projects to life in Michigan. And we're also going to hear from a past awardee. From there, we'll go into some facilitated networking sessions. So please be sure you're taking advantage of meeting one another. And our team is here really to help you connect the dots and explore how you can get involved with the Michigan Mobility Funding Platform kind of today as well as into the future. So we'll reconvene at the very end just for a quick closeout. So diving into NewLab, here at NewLab, we're focused on applying transformative tech to the things that matter. And I have to say, the future of mobility and transportation is a really big part of that. It's something that our team has been really focused on quite a bit in the last couple of years. And several of those team members are here with us today. You'll get to meet them in the networking sessions. If we go to the next slide, we've got a great picture of where I'm sitting today. So this is just a glimpse of our headquarters here in Brooklyn. But over the last 2 years, NewLab has also expanded to Michigan. And we've got a growing team in Detroit, and we're working with stakeholders really across the state on a slate of different mobility projects, this one being one of the ones that we're really proud of. And here at NewLab, we focus on building companies. So we are committed to bringing founders together and really using our resources and our network to power entrepreneurs, and really pairing those entrepreneurs with leaders from corporations, from cities, states, even countries, to foster and to realize new collaborations, and all in the service of applying new technologies really to the most pressing problems, and problems that really by design really require a multi-stakeholder approach and lots of different collaborative efforts. So NewLab's got a portfolio of innovation studios where we're working to bring this to life. We also have a venture studio effort where we help to build companies from the ground up. We're a community builder. So we've got a community today that represents over 200 frontier tech companies and partners across the corporate, civic, and investment spaces. And we also make investments. So we help to deploy capital into the companies that we believe in. But today, back to the task at hand, we're really pleased to be partnering again with the Michigan Office of Mobility and Electrification and MDOT and Next Energy to spread the word about this amazing funding platform, which really is a very special catalyst for companies seeking to pilot their tech in real world environments in close collaboration with Michigan's kind of local and state offices and also local industry leaders. So I definitely encourage you to stick around and take full advantage of the networking opportunity that we're going to have later on in the session. We're definitely here to help spark those connections and to see how this Michigan Mobility Funding Platform can support your vision and your company and your organization. Last piece of housekeeping before I pass it over to Catherine to walk us through the platform is just, again, as you can see, we're all in a meeting together. We'll be chatting later on, but please feel free to use the chat function if you've got questions, particularly as Catherine's going through the platform and as we segue into that panel discussion, I can help to get that in front of our speakers and get those questions answered for you. All right. With that, I will pass it over to Catherine.
Thanks so much, Shana. And thank you everyone for giving us your time today to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the state of Michigan and specifically with our grant program, like Shana said, called the Michigan Mobility Funding Platform. I'm Catherine Storson. I'm the Managing Director with Michigan's Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. I'll just give a quick overview of our office for those who don't know us very well. We'd love to get to know you as well. And then I'll flip over to the website to walk through some information we have available online about our grant program. So our team here in the state of Michigan, we've been together. You'll get to know Charlie and Kate on the line as well. We've been together since 2016, 2017, working on mobility and electrification initiatives, previously under a brand called Planet M. So if anyone is familiar with that brand, Planet M, luckily it's the same group. I would just like to say we graduated from Planet M that was started in 2016, 2017 to the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. You'll see shortened to OFME at the beginning of 2020. And so we saw an expansion of our scope and our vision. So our vision here in the state of Michigan as the office is to create a stronger state economy through safer, more equitable, and environmentally conscious transportation for all Michigan residents. And you'll see some of those themes come up in the grant program that I mentioned as well. And you can learn more about some of our objectives online. I won't touch on all of them today, but another really unique piece about our office is that we are a cross collaboration across 4 state agencies. So I know that sounds kind of complicated, but it does help accelerate the speed that we get work done here in the state. So we were created by the governor's office, but we work across MDOT on infrastructure initiatives, the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation on economic development initiatives, an organization called EGLE, the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy on charging and grid impact. And then we also lastly work with LEO, the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity on jobs and policy. So our office is a collaboration across those 4 state agencies. And then the services we provide, we're here to talk about grants today. So I'll dive into that. We also offer connection services. So we love when people can follow our newsletter to learn about virtual and in-person events that we're hosting. We're really looking for opportunities to strengthen how many times people collide into each other and form partnerships in the mobility and electrification ecosystem here in Michigan. And then new to our office in 2020, we also offer policy support and industry intelligence. So if you have any questions about policy or the industry here in Michigan, I know there's some trivia questions for you to take a look at today, but we're here to be your experts on the ground and just overall for the office to act as a concierge and kind of that one door you can open to Michigan's mobility and electrification ecosystem. So with that, if I can have the switch to the website, I'd love to go through our grant program. Perfect. So instead of slides, I just wanted to show you what the grant program looked like online, because this is the resource I definitely want you to utilize afterwards. And then you can always reach out to us. We do have a box at the very, very bottom that you can ask additional questions. But really, this grant program started back in 2018. We launched the grant program from 2018 to 2020 and sent out 2.4 million was awarded across 26 real world deployment grants and 27 test site deployment grants. So it was great to see the grant program launch for 2 years from 2018 to 2020. And then we just got to relaunch it at the beginning of this year in April. So we're already on round 2. But this is a collaboration between our office and MDOT, as you can see here. So we took all those lessons learned from 2018 to 2020, got to relaunch it. And you can see that there's a link there that you can click on later on that talks about the first round of grants that was awarded once this platform and this grant program was relaunched. So you can read about those 5 recipients, and that gives you a good idea of what we're looking for. And like Shana said, you're going to hear from 2 recipients on a panel later today as well. But the funding platform has 2 main goals. One, we're really focused on the needs of Michigan residents. So I think that for real world deployments, that's really number 1 that we look for. You know, what are the needs of the residents? What are the needs of the mobility industry here in Michigan? And does your deployment and application address that? And you can see our focus on safer, equitable, and environmentally conscious transportation. We're also looking for companies that have some sort of long-term growth potential here in Michigan. That doesn't mean that you have to open an office or you have to hire a certain number of employees, but we just want to see that intentionality around how this deployment can be a launching pad for a longer story and longer term growth and success here in the state. So we definitely ask a question about that in the application. This next section here, you can see how we define our 3 focus areas. So we will ask you in the application which of these 3 you focus on, and you can select 1, 2, or 3. But this is how we define sustainable futures with EV adoption and the build out of the charging infrastructure, equitable futures, you know, removing those barriers to affordable and reliable transportation, and then multimodal transportation as well. So this gives you a little bit more of an inside scoop on what we're looking for as we ask you, what areas are you focused on with your deployment here in the state? And then you can see the eligibility section has 2 parts. So our grant program, a very clear distinction is there are 2 applications. So there's 1 application if you're looking to test at a test site here in Michigan, and I'll get to this later on, but there are specific test sites here in the state where you can test your technology. So there's a test site application, and then there's a real world deployment application, which real world for us is anything outside of those test sites that are named on our website. So the eligibility for both of those applications is that you need to focus on one of those 3 areas I just touched on: sustainable, equitable, or multimodal. And then you do need to have some sort of matching fund. So we are looking to basically cover the gap funding that is needed for testing or deployment here in the state of Michigan. So we ask that you come to the table yourself and whatever partners are involved in the real world deployment or the testing, understand what all the in-kind and financial resources are that you can bring to the table, and then apply for the gap funding. So it's not that we strictly cover 75% and we're looking for you to cover 25%. It's just, you know, sometimes you only need us to cover 10%, or maybe for us to cover 80%. But we want to cover that gap funding after we understand what you can bring to the table against the cost of the testing or deployment. And then that 3rd point there is, demonstrate how the grant can help your company grow here in Michigan. There will be a question on that in the application. There are 2 additional pieces of eligibility for that 2nd application, that real world deployment. If you fall into that bucket, we are looking for you to collaborate with a Michigan-based partner in a real world deployment. So you'll see some examples from our panelists later today on local partners that they partnered with to find success in their deployments, and then meet a local use case or need here in the state. And again, that can be a need from Michigan residents or a need of the industry. So that's an important distinction and a question that comes up a lot. And then an important note that if, I know we're here to focus on real world deployments, but if you are interested in testing at a test site, we would love to provide an introduction to a test site that meets your needs, so you can work with them to see what that design and cost would look like at that test site. So if you want to scroll down a little bit further, I can talk about the timeline. So it is a rolling application. You can apply at any time, but we do have a structured review process that we go through every 3 months. And it does not end in March of 2022. I just didn't want to list, 10 dates out there. So I'll update these as time goes on. And I left the last round up here. We just wrapped up the 2nd round that ended at the end of September because those recipients will be notified by the end of November. So you can see it takes us about, a month and a half to 2 months to get back to applicants after that deadline. So the key date to look for here is the next round of applicants will be reviewed on January, starting, January 1st for all those applications received up till December 31st. And then you can see the most important links here, the 2 applications. So I definitely encourage you, if you're interested in testing at a test site, click on that application, see what the questions are, and same for a the real world deployment application as well. So I'm going to scroll down just a little bit further. We did actually have a session with Ann Arbor, Detroit, and MDOT, and a few others a few months ago. It was a virtual mobility meetup, and we did record it. So if you're listening today and you want a little more information, this is a great resource to watch if you have time. And then keeps going. Beautiful. I won't go through these 2 sections, but just so you know, some of the future plans about the platform are listed here. We're continuing to look for ways to build it out and improve it, and some terms and conditions as well. So we'll keep scrolling to the next section. And these are all the test sites that I mentioned. So if you're interested in testing, these are the test sites that our grant program applies to. And we are happy to get on the phone with you to talk about your testing needs and see which one makes the most sense and provide the introduction there. So if you want to keep scrolling, I think we'll end with the FAQ section. Beautiful. Yep, supporting organizations. Thank you, Shana, for all the shout outs. And these are the frequently asked questions that come to us most often. I think it's so helpful to read through past grant recipients to see what kind of deployments have been awarded in the past. You can see all those round winners listed there. Those were recipients under the Planet M grant that we ran, a very similar program from 2018 to 2020. And then that first link, the 5 mobility companies are the 5 that were awarded for round 1 once we relaunched the grant program. And yeah, so please, if you want to just kind of scroll to end out this page, you can see some of the other questions that are asked. And you can read through these. And then at the very bottom is an open question box. So when if you have any questions that aren't answered today or by this website, please submit them here, and we're happy to answer them for you. So with that, we can close the website. Perfect.
Amazing. So Catherine, one question has popped up in the chat asking about are non-US companies eligible for these funding opportunities? And if so, are there any additional requirements that have to be fulfilled?
Great question. Yes, any mobility company anywhere in the world is eligible to apply as long as they meet those eligibility requirements that I covered. Just working with a local partner, the matching funds piece, and the other ones. But yeah, this is definitely a tool that we want you to use as kind of your first step to launching a successful long-term growth here in Michigan.
Fantastic. All right, that's all the questions for right now. People keep them coming, and we're happy to get them in front of everyone. But maybe this is a good moment to segue into the next portion of our time together. I'll leave it to you, Catherine, for the panel.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we wanted to highlight 2 past grant recipients, just to give you some examples of what those look like, get to know the companies and some of the successes and challenges that they had in deploying, and also talk with one of the key partners that we have in launching the platform, Next Energy. So you'll see joining me on the panel today, we have Tim Slusser, the Director of Smart Mobility Initiatives at Next Energy. We also have Dr. Ali, the CEO at AdaStack, and Chris Andrews, Director of Mobility Business Development at Pratt Miller. So we'll get started with a question for Dr. Ali. Can you provide an overview of your real-world deployment at Michigan State University and what's next for the deployment?
Yeah, I'm fond of it, indeed. We deployed a full-size automated bus to the campus of Michigan State University, which you are seeing at my background right now, since we are already deployed the bus and we started testing.
Yep.
And so this is a shuttle bus that will make a autonomous tour between outer parking lot and the auditorium.
That's fantastic. And would this be a good time to run the video you wanted to show everyone?
Yes, please, so we can see how it works in the real world.
Perfect. All right. The video is running. If you want to provide any overview while it's running.
Yeah. This is a two-way route. This is the start from auditorium, where we will be getting passengers, and then we are taking them and back to the outer parking lot. As you see, the campus is not an easy task to do. There are a lot of pedestrians there around, and 2 uncontrolled left turns, 7 intersections. So it's a little bit challenging route. As you see, we have still a safety driver, which is still a requirement, but we are working on to remove the safety driver, at least on the route, completely in the future. And so basically, in the route, it's the real route, basically, normally used by other buses, as you see. And you can, it's around 4.5 miles. We will be making minimum 10 full routes. And we will be starting getting passengers at the middle of January. One of the advantages of doing this pilot in Michigan is that we will have 4 seasons. So most of the autonomous vehicle demonstrations are done in sunny weathers, but you can get all type of weather conditions will also make this part unique. Also, the working together with a huge university like Michigan State is a very good advantage. We are integrated with their lessons. We are providing data. We will be creating an open data set. Possibly it will be very unique in many ways because of the number of sensor modalities included, the simulation included, and then also there will be, as I explained before, 4 seasons of data. So I think this preview would be enough. So you can stop it right now and move to the.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you can see that sometimes applicants will apply for a certain phase of their deployment with a local partner. So maybe it's a 3-year project and there's 3 phases. So maybe you just need, that Kickstarter gap funding for the first phase. And then of course you're welcome to apply for the other phases as well, but we have seen applicants kind of divide out their phases into smaller chunks. So thank you, Dr. Elliott, that's great.
Thank you.
Chris, if you want to come on, can you also provide an overview of your real world deployment at the Grand Rapids Airport, and how have you been able to scale your solution? How is that, a starting point for you?
Yeah, thanks for having us here to begin with, and for hosting these get-togethers. I mean, the way that this organization is able to bring people together is really amazing, and what we were able to do here is testament to that. So we did a pilot deployment, and it was very successful at Grand Rapids Airport. We deployed our robotic disinfecting solution. It's now called Saphi Robotics. And it really gave us proof points and data that a robotic disinfecting solution can be effective in large environments like an airport. So maybe we roll the video just so people can kind of at least see a little bit of what we're talking about if they're not familiar with it. So
beautiful.
I think it's got some audio, but I don't know if it works.
The 2020 pandemic has permanently changed the way business is done. Keeping a business running during this unprecedented time has required adaptation and implementation of new cleaning methods and procedures. Your employees and customers trust you to keep them safe. They depend on you to be open for business. Pratt Miller has developed a device that gives you the ability to do both at the same time. A device capable of autonomously working alongside your customers and cleaning crews, complementing the efforts, adding that extra layer of confidence. One capable of disinfecting expansive areas, providing your staff with the time they need to focus on detail work that only a human can thoroughly and properly clean. One with an application method so innovative, it allows disinfectant to wrap around and adhere to surfaces, guaranteeing effective coverage. A device developed by a company with a 30-year history of transforming what's possible through technology and innovation.
That's good. Yeah, I just wanted to be able to see if you hadn't seen what it was. It's a little robot that cleans large areas. And I mean, the nice part about the mobility funding that we did and the partnerships that we did here is it allowed us to kickstart and, like I said, get some data so we could use with other customers. And that did allow us to scale very well. So that data then allowed us from that success to talk to Delta Airlines and to 2 other airports. And we're now deployed at Delta's World Gateway in Detroit. At all 3 terminals, it's been running for a year without any failures in all 3 terminals, disinfecting about 1 million square feet. It's also at the Delta terminal in New York's LaGuardia Airport.
Okay.
So it's been there probably 9-10 months without any issues. And we're in talks with a lot of other locations on this solution and other robotic solutions. So it really has been, for something that was a horrible thing, we were able to use our talents and pull together some partners to combat it. So.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And that's definitely the success story we want to see again and again, where someone can launch a real world deployment here in Michigan, but then see it scale to other locations and look at that as a use case. So that's fantastic. And I think with the round of grants that you received, that you were a part of, it also shows the flexibility of our platform. So for some of those people listening, that particular round at the end of, or at the beginning of the COVID pandemic was focused on mobility solutions that addressed COVID-19 challenges. So you will see the platform be flexible on our end. Sometimes we'll launch challenges off of it and have a specific focus. But what I showed you today is just the general, open website and application as you form local partnerships and find out what real deployment works for you. So thanks, Chris. Next, I'll bring on Tim from Next Energy. You've been an essential partner in all of this. Can you talk a little bit about your role within the Michigan Mobility Platform and what are the keys to success for a grant applicant, since you've been part of this effort for so long, since the beginning of, the effort, when the effort started in 2018?
Absolutely, and thank you. So Next Energy, we are the fiduciary and the program manager for the Michigan Mobility Funding Platform. As Catherine mentioned, we've been doing this since 2018, back in the Plan of Them days. Now we have helped to get under contract and are in the process of deploying over 30 real world deployments. So we've got a lot of experience working on this, and we bring that experience to help the awardees identify potential challenges, roadblocks, and things like that before their deployment occurs, so that we can really try and help to drive some of that success. So, and then in terms of those key factors for success, there's a number of them, but I'll focus on 2 right now. So the first one is, if you think about mobility and all the things that are happening right now, a lot of these projects that we see are very data heavy, right? There's a lot of data collection and things like that that are happening. And so we love to see that, right? Data can provide some really great insights and useful feedback. What we want to make sure doesn't happen. So a key to success here is, do not forget to include the human in the loop. All right. Make sure that you're getting that human feedback as well. The data can tell you that you solved the problem. The human might tell you they don't like the way you solved the problem, right? So this is something that's really, really critical to certain projects and programs, but it's always great to make sure that you're really trying to include that human in the loop when you're determining your feedback and your data collection process. So the other thing that I'd point to is risk identification and management. Okay, this program exists. It's a fantastic program. It exists to look at innovative solutions, right? It exists to help to deploy some of these technologies for the very first time, right? In our 2, my 2 other co-panelists here, right, have shown you what that looks like, right? A key to success, though, is looking at and really understanding your risk, planning for it. Some of the topics can include things like budget overruns, things like time constraints or delays. It could even be a situation where every single one of these projects needs to have a site or a local partner, right? What you thought that site was, when you finally get there, it doesn't meet your requirements the way you thought it did, right? You forgot to look for something. So just kind of taking a look at all the different ways that something could go wrong and planning for some of that risk identification and management can really help to drive some successful outcomes for your projects. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Perfect. And then I want to switch back to Dr. Ali and Chris to talk a little bit about some of the challenges. So can you identify, what was the most challenging piece in pulling together the application? And then what was the most challenging piece in deploying your solution? And how did you overcome those challenges? And I'm already seeing a question come in through the chat about how do you connect with a local partner? And that's definitely one of the challenges we've seen. So you can talk about, challenges in the application process and then deployment and how you overcame them. That would be great.
Yeah, our talk with the local partner, Michigan State University, started in an event in Detroit. So we visited Michigan for an event, and then we have seen that there are a lot of help from the state. And there's, we visited Planet M that time, and we have seen that as a company normally established in San Francisco, it'll be much more easier for us to find some demo grounds, some help from the state in our type of business, since our business is not B2C. So we are doing full-size automated buses generally being used by huge corporates or government. So what we have seen that the state was a little bit more focused on the mobility in real world applications. So, it was something as a starter for us. And then in the application stage, since I'm comparing the applications with the things that we are doing in European Union, since we have some projects over there after this one, and it's quite easy indeed. It's quite, I can say that, of course, preparation is not good, is not easy, since, it can sometimes create some chicken and egg problems, since without the funding, you cannot find a partner. Without a partner, you cannot find funding. But and of course, when the other partner is like a state university like we had, then special terms of agreements will be required. But we solved that, and also in that part, also Planet M helped us. And at that time, it was called Planet M. And then they helped us to, they accepted some temporary memorandum of understandings, which helped, which solved the chicken and egg problem. So after getting the fund, basically, when we applied for the fund, there was no pandemic. So I will leave that aside. It was a surprise, but also people from Next Energy helped us to change our project plans, since all automotive sectors affected in the production, and the even taking some permissions for import export was very difficult. So this is a risk that is not planned before, but we get a lot of help on replanning on the Next Energy side in that part. And then also, not only the technical things that you learn from the pilot is important, but we also learned a lot how we apply to NHTSA, get a permission, how we're gonna get the insurance of the bus, especially rather than the technical parts in the deployment, the administrative parts are very important, but I believe that it also adds value, since, it will be required to any place that you deploy. You need to test that once, but this real world deployment also teaches you the things that you not plan in the administrative side.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you pointed out, the help from Next Energy, because adjustments need to be made right throughout the deployment. And it's been great to have such a strong partner since this program started in 2018. Next Energy has been through the ringer. They've seen many different types of deployments and seen how to be flexible. So you do have a great partner once you receive a grant in that. That's great. And Chris, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenging piece of pulling together this application, I like what Tim said, don't forget to include human feedback, because it's really interesting. As we're an engineering company, we design robotic solutions, we design very technical solutions, but we really had to make sure that we solved the problem within the industry and how they work, that we just need to give them a new tool to fight COVID. And it was already being done. It's not like people didn't know how to disinfect or anything, but for very large areas, it ended up being very costly and very resource intensive. So We did a lot of industry expert interviews and tried to find out what problem are we trying to solve here, right? And that's the reason I think we were successful is we listened to those industry partners to say, this is what I need. So we solved, not everything, like, there's still a lot of hand disinfecting needs to get done. You still need the people, but for large areas, it allowed us to focus on that and solve that problem. So I would say that was the biggest challenge, but we quickly kind of pulled that together and working with the partners, applied our team to solve the problem. And then probably the biggest challenge in our deployment was finding a location. So, the state of Michigan and Next Energy was amazing. I won't mention, we went through 3 or 4 different sites. Charlie was very helpful. So were you, Catherine. But very quickly got through quite a few partners to go, no, here's one that gets it, understands the problem, and is willing to at least, put some things on site and put some people in the game. And they were amazing to work with, right?
Yeah, that's great.
And then I guess that part was trusting a robotic solution, right? Not a lot of people, and Dr. Ali can probably attune to this, right? Some people don't have a lot of trust in these systems. So it was really letting them see not only the site where we're working, but let some of the people see the expertise that we have and to learn to trust. Look, we've done things like this before, and being fairly transparent with how you're doing it and the experience you have. And people really started to trust, and it really was neat.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm happy to hit on that local partner question a little bit more in the open Q&A, but I want to end with Tim, any advice to companies who are interested in applying for a real world deployment grant? I'm sure some people are considering that.
Well, I'm going to hit on it for you right now. So that would be, there's a lot of advice, right? But if there's the number one thing that I would say at the pre-application stage, you just heard, Chris talk about it, Dr. Ali talked a little bit about it too. My recommendation is identify the local partner and develop a solid relationship with them, right? Sit down, have a number of conversations, not a 30-minute, oh, hey, were you guys interested? Yep. And then you submit an application. Sit down, really talk through it, right? What problem are we trying to solve? Is it meeting the needs, that we want it to? What are the objectives and outcomes that we're looking for? Really dive into that because, we're going to ask you as part of the review process to answer those questions, right? And so, you're much better off if you can answer those questions on the spot and confidently. And, as Chris mentioned, right? Pratt Miller had to find the right partner that understood it, right? That was ready to leverage this and put a little skin in the game themselves, right? So, taking the time to go through that and develop that strong relationship with that local partner helps your application, and it helps you long term as you're looking to scale your business, right? Because that first partner is going to be so invaluable in your success, not just for this project, but for your business. So that would be my number one recommendation for pre-application.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim. And we do encourage, there is an option to add a letter of support to your application from your local partners, because I know Dr. Ali has touched on that kind of chicken and egg situation. So if you need funding from the state in order to fully secure funding from the partners, but there's that intentionality from the partners in a letter of support, that's always helpful too, to kind of meet in the middle. I know it can be a chicken and egg problem. And I'll just touch on that local partner piece while we're on the topic. A few different ways you can connect with a local partner. One, I know a lot of people say this, but if you can follow our newsletter, we do host a lot of virtual, and now we're starting with in-person events as well. We also travel to shows like CES, where we host networking events for you to meet people. So that's number one, just generally getting connected to the Michigan mobility ecosystem here. We do provide a couple of avenues throughout the year for you to do that. Two, we would love to connect with you and learn more. We have so many great partners here on the line, New Lab, Silicon Foundry as well, and Next Energy and MDOT and others who would love to hear about what your real world deployment could look like, and then brainstorm with you on a few local partner ideas. Our involvement in no way guarantees a grant. We're happy to help as much as we can, since we are on the ground. We know a lot of the local partners, but just know that our involvement doesn't guarantee a grant. We just want to set you up for success in the application. And then there's going to be a handoff period, right? So where we provide those introductions, and then it's up to you to do the work to build out that application, like Tim said. And then the third piece, which I'm very happy you'll see quite soon on our website, Kate Partington from our team is building 2 interest forms. So we've gotten the feedback that, of course, it's hard to identify a local partner when you can't be here in the state. So we're going to put 2 interest forms on our website. One, if you have a mobility solution, but you don't have a local partner yet, you can fill it out, and that gives us a way to connect with you. Of course, reach out today after the session if you're interested in connecting directly. But, if in a few months that makes more sense, you can fill out that interest form on our website as a first step. And then we also will have a second interest form for local partners here in the state of Michigan who has some sort of demand. And so we can also collect demand as well through those interest forms. We have other ways of collecting demand in the state through just working groups and regular meetings with community partners, but these 2 interest forms will be able to streamline those efforts a little bit more. So I'll pause there and see, Shana, if there's any other questions coming in that you want to address.
Yeah, there's one other question. What stage of growth company typically wins grant funds or appears most frequently for the real world deployments? Is it seed, Series A, kind of any guidance there?
Yeah, you'll definitely see questions in the real world deployment application asking about your stage of funding and if you're actively raising around right now. But we do not have any requirements on what size of company you need to be. We have seen startups who started a few months ago, but have a solid, address a solid need in the state and have solid partners who have received grants. And we've also seen corporates come in who just have, that really unique set of partners that they're bringing together. So we do fund applications across all stages of companies. It's really more about addressing a resident or an industry need and having the right partners around the table. It's not about the size of company. It's about the deployment itself and what it can do for residents of the industry here in Michigan, and then of course your company's long-term growth, in the state as well.
Awesome. And then one other question coming in: will you directly match interested local partners with relevant startups, or does that information get shared kind of after people are filling out these forms?
Yeah, so we do conduct what we call tech scouting. So when we hear a demand come from a local partner, we will go out through our networks, and that's why we have so many partners around the table. Ourselves, OFME, New Lab, Silicon Foundry, Next Energy, MDOT. We all have networks of mobility companies globally. So we will, we'll look at that demand and do tech scouting and bring back some options to our local partners as well. So we're going both ways. It obviously works a little bit better when you have a demand and then you can do the tech scouting and match it with supply. And that's why we're looking to launch specific challenges off the platform as well that you can respond to. But in the meantime, happy to learn more about what your deployment could look like and see what connections make sense for you here for a local partner.